people understand that there's an answer, there's a way. We the people have to say. So send the orders to prepare, that we the people do declare. Send the good news, send the word, we the people will be heard. We the people everywhere. There's a message in the air, and it's moving across the land. And if you listen, you can hear it well, my friend.
Poverty, the most important thing in our country. Why does it take so long to address the issue? We can solve poverty if we put our minds to it. I'm Lou Ismay. I'm your host. Welcome to DN News in Review. In addition to the poverty, we have racism. And in addition to poverty and racism, we have militarization, requiring more than half of our federal budget annually. Price tag keeps rising. What shall we do? Must we have violence? Can't we use diplomacy? So many issues. Citizen4, one word, the code word used by Ed Snowden when he was initially contacting people that he trusted to reveal what he had learned, what he had collected as a member of National Security Agency. It's in the theaters now. It'll be in our area pretty soon. Will we attend? Will we learn something? It's a big debate. The surveillance of American citizens, people in our country, people elsewhere in the world. Laura Poitras, the person who filmed the documentaries, spent 20 hours filming Edward Snowden. This is the third of a trilogy. She's a well-known journalist. What she has to say, she says on the screen. And at some point we're going to have a debate. The debate regarding surveillance. What kind of surveillance is necessary in a democracy? Is it necessary? What will we accept? What will we reject? It's an issue affecting people throughout the world. Most recent news discussed on Democracy Now! Was the fact that our intelligence agencies are turning Vienna, Austria, into a major hub of information gathering. In past years, the city of Vienna was known as a gathering place of diplomats and of spies, people who wanting to know what was going on in the background. Our intelligence agencies are apparently doing the same thing now, collecting data from people. It's a gathering place of diplomats, people who work to make the world work. What will the result be? Our interference in other people's lives through our means of surveillance? Are we aware that someday we're going to have to make a decision? It's known, and we should remember, history indicates that we are, and have been, a country of fearful people. And nowadays, many seems to be remembering something that FDR made when he was president, his inaugural address. Quote, "We have nothing to fear but fear itself." End quote. Ebola. We're fearful. Politicians get involved. It's election time. Sounds good. Protecting our people. Those who are working overseas on behalf of all of us to stop the outbreak of Ebola, now in quarantine when they return from their work. We have military people there helping out to contain that outbreak of Ebola. Will they be quarantined? Mr. Hagel has already indicated that this would happen. Is it necessary? We're fearful. 2 or 3 cases or so in this country of ours throws so many of us into turmoil. We need to remember that we create havoc in other people's lives around the world as a result of our foreign policy, our willingness to play a game, supporting dictators when necessary, disposing of people who are legitimately, legally elected by their own communities, their own country people. Is there something about us that needs to be inspected, thought about? Well, what shall we do? The privacy in Europe, well spoken and addressed by a woman named Andreas Kirsch. She's the president of European Digital Rights. There was a law in the European Union that metadata, not the contents of a phone call, but the fact that somebody was calling somebody else and it took so many minutes for the conversation, had to be collected and kept for 2 years. European Court recently struck down that law, much to the relief of many. Will our courts protect us, or will our courts go along to get along? Pretty harsh statement, but this is pretty serious business. A former weapons inspector in Iraq, Robert Kelly, was interviewed on Democracy Now! He raises a very important question: the truth of documentation. Documentation presented in this particular case regarding conversations with the government of Iran regarding nuclear weapons. There was agreement, and Iran signed the international nuclear agreement regarding creation of nuclear material for medicine and other purposes. The enrichment of that mineral. The news from the regarding the conversations that are ongoing now indicates that there's a question regarding weaponization. Well, according to Kelly, that's not on the agenda. Iran is sticking to the agreed-upon agenda, apparently, and this is something, weaponization is an add-on. Who do we believe? Documents indicate that Iran is hiding something. Kelly was responsible for investigations regarding weapons years ago. He questions the authenticity now because then documents were proven to be false, frauds. What if we make a decision based on fraudulent information? Weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. False. The aluminum tubes. False. Some of us may remember that far back about the intensity of the reports. Many of us have forgotten about it or never really paid attention. But nuclear weapons are a danger to all of us. Our president spoke to the Czech Republic several years ago. We are going to reduce our arsenal. Actually, the United States and Russia did reduce many, many weapons. However, our president, Mr. Obama, has decreed that our nuclear weapons need to be refurbished, upgraded. Soviet Union has something in the order of 8,000 nuclear weapons. We have about 7,000. Do we need that many? One could easily wipe out life on Earth. Two certainly would, depending on how they're used, how effective, and those considerations. But so many thousands. Israel has some, India has some, Great Britain has some, other countries have some. That could be instant death for a great many of us. Accidents have happened. One of our bombers breaking up in midair over one of the Carolinas. Centrifugal force caused one of the bombs, nuclear bombs, hydrogen bomb, to break loose and begin the process of arming itself. Only by luck, the final switch in the sequence malfunctioned. That's the only thing that prevented a nuclear explosion. Nuclear bombs have been lost. What shall we do with such a dangerous weapon? Shouldn't you and I be more concerned? Shouldn't we pressure our leaders to make peace with others in the world and destroy all nuclear weapons? There are none that are completely safe because accidents can happen. We've had a recent a situation in recent months. Military people trusted with their vigilance, their capabilities, falling asleep on the job, carelessness, sloppiness in their work, potential accident. Are we aware? And are we aware of the nuclear activities in our own area and how it could affect us if there was some malfunction of some sort? Our nuclear reactors are old. They're past their prime. Why aren't they closed down? Oh, we can find electricity. It can be generated by sunlight. Look around our area. Drive out in the country. Notice the farms. Large arrays of solar panels. We were recently in Schoharie County, in the vicinity of the Apple Barrel and the Carrot Barn. Carrot Barn, large array of solar panels. Dairy farms in the area have. Some of the buildings in our area have them. Net zero. In other words, no cost for electricity for a year. We won't get into explaining the details, but look into it. So we could close the nuclear plants. Now, Noam Chomsky was in the news recently. Interview with Democracy Now! And Amy Goodman. Chomsky spoke, as a matter of fact, he actually blasted the United States for supporting Israel and blocking the creation of a Palestinian state. Now, we've shown this little chart once before. As a matter of fact, we've shown it several times in the past, and we're going to take another look at it and we'll explain what it is. In 4 stages: Jewish land and Palestinian land, the green Palestinian, the white Jewish, and the date 1946. Zionists came in sometime after World War I, began to buy parcels of land. The British government was in favor and supported them with a resolution. In 1947, look at the difference. There's Palestine. White are the Israeli lands. And this little jut out here on the left side is the Gaza Strip as it was at that time. Right there. Now we skip to 1949, the period between 1949 and 1976, and there was a little...
67.
No, 67. 57 was... no, this is 49 up to 67, the 67 war. Gaza had been shrunk to this. Gaza is the only part of Palestine that borders the sea, the Mediterranean. It should never have been severed as it was here. But this is now how it looks. And even more recently, in 2009, here's the Gaza Strip. Here's what's left of Palestine. Just recently, another 1,000 acres were taken over in the West Bank, the Jordan River. Israel would prefer, according to documentation that's secret but has been revealed in earlier conversations on Democracy Now!, the real purpose of the Israeli government, at least one element of the government, the one in control, want no Palestinians left, nothing of that country left. The documents are there. People can search them. If nothing else, search democracynow.org and see what has been written, spoken, interviews regarding the situation with Palestine and the Israeli occupation, which incidentally is against international law. It's a major issue. Are we well enough informed to form an opinion? Anyway, Chomsky blasted the Israeli government for what it's been doing. And we might want, if you want to read his speech, here's the title of it. You can look it up on democracynow.org. Here.
Oops.
Here we go. Now, 22nd of October. Google it. Noam Chomsky blasts the United States for supporting Israel blocking Palestinian state. It is chock full of important dates and information. Jeremy Scahill has been in the news recently again. He wrote a very famous book about the title Blackwater, The Rise of the World's Most Powerful Mercenary Army. He was interviewed regarding the situation where guards who were part of the massacre in Nisour Square several years ago in Iraq, killing people indiscriminately. One guilty of murder, others guilty of manslaughter, voluntary manslaughter. President of the company, Eric Prince, now a billionaire, now creating another mercenary army named Africa, backed by Chinese money. Question: should leaders of corporations such as Blackwater doing harmful things be held accountable? When banks do harmful things and cause the lives of people to be ruined, losing their property, should the leaders be punished? Should only the underlings be punished? Those at the very bottom of the ladder of corporations or government, not the leaders? If a leader of a company, of a country, commits war crimes, should that leader and the administration that were involved, should any of them be punished? We have had very recently a presidential administration that authorized and participated in war crimes. Should leaders in the United States be exempt from punishment when these same leaders support punishment in other countries of other presidents or leaders? We need to think about it. What's the right thing to do? Women are being punished, harassed on the internet, especially those who are opposed to some of the games that are played, created and played. If we pay attention, women are being held in with contempt. They're receiving threats of rape and murder, receiving threats to their families, because they're standing up for what may be considered the better qualities of civilized people and people in a democracy. Supposedly, we're better than other people, at least some of us think so. At any rate, Anita Sarkeesian was interviewed on Democracy Now! She is a blogger. She's concerned about what's on the internet. The violence, the treatment of women who are used as sort of decoration in some of these violent computer games. Not many of us, some of us may not know about these games, but those who use the internet know. Back to Noam Chomsky for a minute. He did raise a very important question. He stated that it would be nice if the United States lived up to international law. And we've broken it many, many times. You see, being a superpower, the largest, strongest ever in the history of the world, ever the largest, it's done because with that we're in that position for a number of reasons. Right now, just the idea is enough for our conversation. We have resorted to violence and intrigue. We support people just doing whatever they want, in a sense, creating business and doing things, without regard to what the effects of what they do, without regard to the facts regarding pollution, whatever it is, land, sea, air, waters. We're coming at a point where we are recognized as causing some significant changes throughout the planet. At some time, shouldn't this great empire, according to people who keep records of such things, economically and socially and so forth, shouldn't we begin to take a different kind of leadership? A leadership of nonviolence by using diplomacy. Instead of reaching for the phone, White House to the Pentagon, let's take care of this. How soon can the troops be flown in? Instead of that approach, the diplomatic approach. Wouldn't that be something that would give us a new kind of leadership? A leadership that the world seems to want, because there seems to be a great deal of opposition to the United States. The way the country is acting, the things that the country does. Now, people elsewhere don't look at individuals. They don't look at the internal problems. They just see some organization, some nation that is dominating the world. And you know, history also teaches us something. At some point, there's a tipping point. At some point, all the little guys get together and gang up on the big guy. It's happened in the past. What happens to the big guy doesn't exist as a big guy anymore. Well, Something to think about. A couple more interesting things in the news. Mumia Abu Jamal, Philadelphia. New law in Pennsylvania to prevent prisoners and former prisoners the rights to free speech. This may end up in the courts. Jamil is a journalist, philosopher, writes and speaks. Now he can't speak anymore. Is this something that we ought to be paying attention to? The big issues in our democracy: freedom of the press, freedom to speak. We're supposed to have privacy, but we find now we really don't have any. Well, what shall we do? Some important things have been going on in our area. We've got a couple of them coming up, and we'll talk about some that have just been in the past. In Troy, at the here Sanctuary for Independent Media, coming up. Let's get the date here. It's in early November, the 4th. There it is, 4th of November. The Yes Men, the two who cause us to think, using sarcasm and humor, and so they're going to be in our area. This, an important historical event. Down with the Rent. Friday and Saturday, November 21, 22. We showed this early because there are tickets, and there are many, many people who want to be there. So you call, there's the telephone number and the email for old songs, prices. Very recently, a few evenings ago, Veterans for Peace, the Tom Paine chapter, 6th Annual Winter Soldier Peace and Justice Awards, happened in the Latham Firehouse banquet room. Nice place for an event, by the way. 3 people were honored. Some of the people who were honored in the past, you may recognize the names. All in some way dedicated to justice and peace. Ed passed away recently, and there's going to be a memorial for him on the 10th of November. And might want to know about that. We'll announce that again with the date and with the time and the place. But it's going to be on the 10th of November. Well, the awards are based on the Winter Soldier. In December 23rd in 1776, a man named Tom Paine, who lived in what is now Westchester County, wrote about the Winter Soldier. The person who, the men, who stays to the task throughout the winter. And that winter was a bitter winter, Valley Forge. They stay, 1776, Valley Forge is, I think, a year after that, but it doesn't matter. What does matter is the concept. Those who stick with the issue, who go through hell, cold, whatever it is, while others just serve during the nice weather. And these are the people who were honored. Now, Doug Bolduc, a member of the Common Council in Albany, he's known, this is the only picture he has of his bullhorn. He uses his bullhorn in parades and demonstrations, and so one of our more enlightened leaders, compassionate, right on the target. Sue Clark, a peacemaker. She's taught, came after meeting John Samosky from FOR in 1943. Anyway, she was given an award, and the third person was another lady named, let's get this out of here. Well, I apologize for my, here we go. Maud Easter. So the three people, honored members of the community. And at that event, this was distributed. Grounding the War, the Drones, an initiative of the Women Against War organization. There are a number of events going on in our area. Coming up now, 25th to November 4th. Play called Grounded. Videos. Workshop. The Hubbard Interfaith Sanctuary of the College of St. Louis on Madison Avenue. Other things coming up. November 5th to the 14th. There'll be panel discussions and performances. And you can call and find out all of these things. Give your phone number in a few minutes. Dates, College of St. Rose, 13th at 7 p.m. Arts Center, the Capital Region, November 11th. And the 30th, Cultural Center at RPI, Burdett Avenue in Troy. The 15th, the old Chatham Quaker Meeting House. Academy of the Holy Names on the 19th. Drones turn out to be one of the most destructive of all inventions in terms of how they're used and in terms of the damage to innocent civilians. Thousands. Drones will be another invasion as soon as they're authorized to do more than they're now doing in our country. How will they be controlled? Should they be controlled? When should they be controlled? Questions that need to be answered. Matters of privacy, civil liberties, all sorts of things. Certainly a significant additional loss of privacy. Those of us who occasionally get down to protest on some occasion in New York City are accustomed to seeing the blimps fly around, take photographs, out in the fields or the streets in rural situations or some urban situations, light planes flying about up and down the line of march. Sophisticated electronic equipment can identify and does identify the people who are participating. There's always a danger, even in a non-violent kind of thing, because something could happen, an accident or whatever. Liberty requires vigilance. It's said in many different ways over the years. Are we being vigilant? Are we participating? We have an election coming up, midterms. Are we going to participate? The newsletter, Solidarity Notes. This is what it looks like. November issue, put out by Solidarity. An interesting little piece. Landing in Sicily. Some treat migrants differently than we do. We'll summarize this editorial from this issue of the America magazine. When the migrants debark from the Navy ship in Sicilian harbor of Augusta, at least that many entered Italy in the first 8 months of this year, more than twice the number who arrived in this year. They're treated with food, medicine, welcome. Churches arrange for them to move the pews if necessary, bring out cots, whatever the refugees, immigrants need to sustain themselves in dignity, in decency, and in clean places. Welcomed by the population. Is that the way to treat people who are refugees fleeing from elsewhere for some safety? Or is our way better? Calling them illegal and treating them as we do. And deporting them, breaking up families. And we've already reported in the past the number of children that are left homeless. Virtually, orphans in a way. No other family. They have to be cared for by others. What do human beings need? What about compassion? What about care? We frequently talk about and reminded of the Holocaust of the World War II era, and the horrible way that millions were gassed, killed, shot in the fields, starved, whatever the circumstances were. And that's now something that we've celebrated and are reminded of. In a way, that was genocide. And it's been committed since in other parts of the world and before World War II. Locally, there was exhibit some time ago at the library in Colonnade, Sanders Library. We took some photographs, not very good, but the exhibit was only on. We just happened to catch it on the day that it was going to be dismantled. It happened in the Ukraine. It happened in 1932-33. We won't get into all the details, just give us an idea. This is the Ukraine. This is the area that was sealed off in the western part. No one allowed in, no one allowed out. No aid allowed in, no food allowed in. This is the granary, the most fertile part. This is, by the way, the Crimea. So this is the country as it existed then, under Soviet domination, part of the Soviet Union. It was called the Holodomor. The reason it was unknown in the West, it was reported, but this man, Durant, stated this: there is no actual starvation or death from starvation, but there is widespread mortality from diseases due to malnutrition. 1933. Sort of a spokesman for Stalin. Our Foreign Office, a certain amount of information about the famine conditions in the south of Russia. We do not want to make it public because the Soviet government would resent it and our relations with them would be prejudiced. So our government knew that millions of people were dying from starvation. The death toll was pretty horrendous. Oh, here we go. Why are Ukrainians pressing for recognition? Want to play tribute, condemn the crimes, raise awareness that food is still being used as a weapon, help prevent such deplorable acts from happening again. There is a count of how many people died per hour, per day, per minute. Several million people. And it continues. We did not get involved with Rwanda, the massacre there, the genocide there. Our hands are not entirely clean as a people, as a nation. We have not yet apologized for the genocide of our native people, American Indians. That's what it amounted to. Started on the East Coast. Blankets given as gifts. The blankets infected with smallpox. No immunity for these folks. They just died by the hundreds of thousands, entire communities. In order to provide immunity, some of the leaders promoted the idea of intermarriage between the local people, especially women, and the European men. That helped, but not immediately. How do we treat one another? There's something going on that maybe we need to know about. This was one of the things distributed at that dinner about which we spoke. People of faith against the idea of the death penalty. People of faith. We have a great many religions in our country. It happens around the world. People tired, don't agree with what's going on in their particular religious group, so they break off and form their own. And our country has a great many of those situations, organizations like that. Many of them Christian, many of them are not Christian. They're of other faiths. There are people who think we are a Christian nation, and that's not exactly true. People will argue it. We're a nation of many. But just for example, just in case, would Christians have any value regarding the killing of others? Worshippers in the Jewish faith or Islam, Buddhism, do any of those religions have anything regarding killing of one another? It's just a thought. We're going to go through some really interesting changes. We're going to need to learn to work together more effectively and efficiently. What shall we do? The recent issue of the Smithsonian Magazine. That's the cover. There's a story in here about a man who lost his legs, suffered in Iraq. The story is about giant steps. It's about a Marine corporal named William Gadsby. He was leading a team explosion. After a great deal of study and work, a device by a man named Herr, H-E-R-R, produced a device that enables Gadsby to get around. It's so effective that mountain climbing is easier, walking is easier, doing chores and so is easier. And the article is interesting. This is his comment. Felt like I was going from using a bicycle to a Ferrari. I was getting energy return. I was getting propulsion. It felt real. And he's exalted. But it was pointed out in the article that, and here it is, in less than 20 years, and this is from the man who was interviewed in this article and written about, step outside and see someone wearing a robot, meaning a bionic of some sort. It'll be common. It'll restore people to their way of living. And here, very quickly, a couple of photographs, the current issue of National Geographic. Saura on the mountain, showing the effects of that avalanche that took place on Mount oh, for heaven's sakes, in the Himalayas. And here's another photograph of it here. Here's Mount Everest. This is the root of the avalanche. And this is the rubble of it. And this shows the rescue path and the new trails that have to be made. It's an interesting article. Might want to read it. It's time to remember that the food banks need us. So does the food pantries. There are many people who need help in our area. We need to help the farmers. We need to support the local farmers. We need to support the independent bookstores, the libraries, the independent cinemas in our area. People depend on us. We have a community. There's always a problem with the word community. There's always a problem with the word socialism. Socialism is working on behalf of people, conducting affairs as if people really mattered. There's a kind of a political system called a social democracy. It's working in Scandinavia. It takes some thinking. It takes some planning. It takes some compassion. What shall we do? We have people in need. We have work to be done. We have an environment that needs attention and some repair or some modification in our way of living. Are we thinking about these things? Are we thinking about history and what we can learn about what happens to others when they did not take responsibility for the conditions in which they find themselves? Pay attention to what's going on. Look forward to being together the next time. I've been your host, Lou Ismay. Thank Glenn Jarrett for his engineering. Pay attention. Keep up with the fracking information and the bomb trades.
The future is in reason, not building ways of war. And the time has come for reason to be heard. The purpose of the people's what this declaration's for. It's why I